Hello everyone. So I know we'll be speaking on Parashat Bereshit. I know it's last week's parsha, but this is such a foundational parsha that I just couldn't let it go. It's my personal favorite, so let's just get right into it. This is based on Rabbi. I'll be giving 2 points. The first is based on Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and so is the second, but I'll go off from there. So the first, this is in Covenant and Conversation. It's literally his first essay on the first parsha of Chumash. So the first pasuk says, "Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz." Right. So more or less in the beginning of God's creating of heavens and earth. Right. Now we see Rashi, the first Rashi in all of Chumash. So Bereshit. So Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Atana, Lo yatzarech lahatchil the Torah el machodesh zelachem. Right. Shouldn't the Torah have started with hachodesh zelachem, which is in the I think Parashat Bo in Shemot. So next Chumash. Right? Shehi mitzvah rishona shinstavu Yisrael. Right? Because that's the first mitzvah that Bnei Israel were commanded. Omatam patach beBereshit. So why is he opening with Bereshit? That seems to be a bit of an astonishing question. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs revs it up. He says, "Hang on, what kind of question is that? What do you mean? Why did we not start with the first mitzvah? You have all these amazing stories. You have the creation of the world. You have the story of Adam v'Chava, of Cain and Hevel, of Noach, the Mabul, Bavel." Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the Avot, the Shvatim. I mean, it seems like, how could you not, like, what's, as we'd say, your Haval Mina, what's the initial assumption that you shouldn't start here? What's Rabbi Yitzchak trying to say, and why is Rashi bringing this out? Why is he saying, like, well, what are we doing starting with Bereshit? Like, what a silly place to start. So Jonathan Sachs makes clear that that's because a lot of people look at the Torah with a different lens that it should not be looked at. And that is this. Rabbi Yitzchak is asking this because the Torah is a book about how we're supposed to live. The way he brings it up is like this. If you're looking at this as a history book, what's a history book's point? What happened? Right? You read a history book, you're trying to figure out what happened. How about say, like, if you want to see this as like, no, it's like it's a mythic story. It's a scientific recounting of what happened. Okay, so what are those usually focused on? How did it happen, right? That's not the reason why Rashi's first comment is about this is because it's not a history book. What happened is, we're not going to say it's irrelevant, but that's not the point of Torah. We're not looking to learn history. It's not a mythic story. We're not trying to figure out how did it happen. How did it come to be? That's not the point either. The point is, how are we supposed to live our lives? How shall we live? That's the question of Rabbi Yitzchak. Why are we starting here? This isn't talking about the mitzvahs. The Torah is all about how we're supposed to live. But the reason why it does start here, this is not Rashi's answer, but Rabbi Sachs' answer is because we're looking to see the Torah is all about how we're supposed to live, and so actually appropriately it does begin here because there are many messages. I want to skip those messages and just go to one. The creation of Adam. So actually, there are 2 creation stories. I'll try to go through this very quickly. There are 2 creation stories. Like this. Okay, so we're on the first parak, Chavzayin, Pasuk 27. Vayivra Elokim et Adam etzalmo b'tzelem Elokim barato zachar unkeva baraotam. Right. So God created Adam. He created a male and female. Okay, and then there's a second creation story, which does not seem right, or does not seem correct. Whereas, this is in 2:18. Right? So man was looking for a mate. He didn't have one. So it's not good for man to be alone. Let's put him to sleep. So Hashem puts him to sleep. Right? Sorry, this is 2:22. Right? And then God built out of the rib that he took from Adam an Isha, and he brought him to Adam. And then when Adam sees her, what does he say? Foundational. This is also in Rabbi Tatz's book, a different one. It's a letter in the scroll. V'yomer ha'adam zot hapam eitzem ma'atzamai uvasar mibsari. Right? And so Adam says, this time, bone from my bone and flesh from my flesh, lezot yikara isha ki me'ish lukachazot. Right? She shall be called Isha because she was taken from Ish. Now, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs points out that who's the first person that Adam names here, interestingly enough? Amazingly, he points out, Lezoti Kara Isha, he names her first, Himeish Lukachazot, because she was taken from man. So what Rabbi Sachs says here is, in order for man to even recognize himself, in order for us to recognize ourselves, we first need to see the other, right? And like in a marital relationship, in a marital bond, once we can see someone else, then we can really recognize ourselves. And this is a foundational lesson, especially in Bereshit, but overall in Judaism, because as Rav Aaron Feldman says in The River, the Kettle, and the Bird, why is marriage so foundational to Judaism? Why are like Jews, I mean, in a way, obsessed with marriage? So it's because when you get married to somebody, it's effectively teaching you that it's not all about you. And that's a very real lesson because you're waking up to the same person, going to sleep to the same person every single day. And you can't help but realize that this person may not agree with you on everything, may have different desires, may have different interests, may have different tastes, and you have to deal with it because this is your spouse. And you have to be loving and supportive, and you need to sacrifice of your own selfish wants in order to give to this person. And that is the perfect relationship to start understanding what it's like to relate to God, right? Because that's what Torah is all about. We're trying to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So marriage is really the ideal form for that, because ultimately the Jewish people actually have a marital bond to God, and amazingly, this whole relationship, this dynamic comes right at the fore, right at the front. Because how do we explain these two different creation stories? We're taking the big ideas and just kind of condensing them quickly, because these two stories are not contradictory, right? At the beginning, Adam was created as Zachar v'Nekeva, right? Seemingly as one individual as both genders. So we say that actually one side was male and the other side was female. There couldn't be a back and a front, it was just two fronts. Yeah? And the second case was no. Adam was put to sleep. Actually, a woman was separated from him, and now there are two separate individuals. And therefore, their life goal was effectively to reunite in that bond and to create that self-same oneness that they were originally created with. So the first part was the ideal, and now they have all the hard work to come back to that original oneness. And perhaps this is my own thought, just so I'm not saying it in someone else's name, that this is almost like at the core. We have to hear this in Bereshit because that's our life existence. It's to eventually to give up our own selfishness, to try to connect to otherness, particularly to God. And just as a quick observation, I found it fascinating seeing a movie like The Truman Show, but I'm sure this happens multiple times. I can't think of any other specific examples at the moment. In The Truman Show, what happens? This guy is raised on effectively TV set, an elaborate TV set for his whole life, and he never really looks like outside of his immediate vicinity. He doesn't even think to question it. What gets him to question things? Once a woman enters the picture, amazingly. The fact that he meets a woman now makes him take a step back and be like, hang on a second, is everything all right? And he starts to see a broader picture, and he starts to effectively break the world he knows and ventures outside of it. He like goes on this journey of self-discovery, really, because of a woman. And that's actually a very deeply religious theme, because that relationship to woman is almost like our relationship to God. You'll often have people who live in a specific boundary of order, and then don't question anything until they see something that might be outside of themselves, and they start to see like, hey, hang on, is everything all right in the world I'm living in right now? So they decide to like take a step out and see it. We'll see you later in the week. Enjoy. Have a great week.